Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on the PA workshop, which is entitled Unlocking the Power of Attribute-Driven Hierarchies in Planning Analytics Workspace. And this is recorded for Bacon Conference 2020, and that was on October 15th of 2020. And we are in the new PA version 57 version. So this is fresh 8 or 9 days old, and so looks a little bit different than previous versions of PA, which you'll notice. And if you're watching this in the future, of course, you're probably on PA 57 already. So you'll see some of those new features throughout the course. And just as an introduction here, this workshop not only will cover the attribute-driven hierarchies feature, but also a comprehensive overview of modeling in PA and performing reports and analytics as well. So you'll get the full picture, you'll build dimensions and cube, you'll load that cube with some data, build some business rules around that data, and then perform reporting, dashboarding, forecasting, and analysis. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. This should be about a 2-hour course, and it's intended for a novice or a beginner audience. It is hosted on PM Square's AWS instance. You will need to have 3 machines running, both our PA server, our PA instance, and the Encorta Bacon MS SQL Sandbox, which is hosting the data source, the SQL Server Go sales. All right, you should have login information provided by your administrator, and the URL for our environment planning.pm2analytics.com. So get you to the page I'm showing here right now. Go ahead and log in with your credentials. And the first step we will do is open up a template that's been created already. So I click on the shared icon for the shared folder. It's off on the left ribbon here, the manila envelope with the person nested inside. And that will give us the Bacon 2020 folder and admin functions. Bringing up the admin functions template, I'd like everybody to save a copy of this so that we don't step on each other's toes. And to do that, you're going to go in the upper left and click the save icon, and the drop down will be save as. And so for save as, you can change to your personal folder, which is the top left manila envelope. And I'm going to save this as my login name, more admin functions. So be sure to save everything throughout the workshop with your own login name beforehand as a preface, just so it stays unique and that we're not stepping on each other's toes. So now I have my own copy as shown at the top, more admin functions. And I will go ahead and get into the next exercise. So we're going to create model architecture. PA model architecture consists of dimensions, which are made up of members, and members can be further defined by attributes. Dimensions can be combined to form cubes, and cubes can be loaded with data, as we'll do in later steps of the workshop. So first things first, we're going to build our first dimension. And so to do that, I want to make sure I'm in edit mode. Edit mode is if you hit the blue pencil up top, or the pencil icon, and see the blue underlining. You'll need to be in edit mode throughout the workshop to be able to perform the steps. So always make sure that that is turned on. I'm going to create a new worksheet by hitting the plus tab. And when I hit the plus tab, it asks for a template. I'm going to choose the dotted rectangle outline, which we'll do through most of the workshop. So double click the middle icon. And I get a blank canvas, and on the blank canvas, I will expand databases from the left-hand side, and I'll expand the Bacon 2020 server and dimensions. Just highlighting dimensions, I can right-click it and choose Create Dimension, and I'm going to name it with my login name, followed by measures. Please use your login name so it remains unique. And I get into the dimension editor wizard, and I'm going to enter new members. So big blue button, enter new members. I'm going to type in 7 items as listed on the handout. Make sure you don't press commit. quantity, you press enter after each member that you enter. Unit price, enter. Unit cost, enter. And now I have my 7 items. I verify those are all correct, and I press commit. And I've created my dimension. To get a little more space, I'm going to tuck the databases away so I can re-click that icon, and it rolls up the content tree. And now I'm going to build a roll-up in my dimension. To do that, I can drag and drop. And what I want to roll up is revenue and COGS into the gross margin. I want to calculate my gross margin. And typically aggregations or roll-ups are just sums, addition on lists of items. So if I wanted to add together a list of products or a list of departments to get a total department, that would make sense to do so. In this example, we want to net the difference between revenue and COGS. So instead, I will go ahead and weight the COGS. And to do that, I will highlight COGS, scroll to the upper right, and hit the I for Show Information panel. And I'm able to change the weighting to a -1. A +1 on revenue, -1 on COGS means that when I apply, COGS will be subtracted from revenue to get a gross margin. I'm all done there, so I'll hit I again, which will close that window. And last thing to do on the measures dimension is to format them. Formatting, we just highlight each item and right-click Set Format at the bottom of that list. And for quantity, those are going to be whole numbers. I don't want any partial or any decimal precision, so rounded should be a good choice for quantity. For unit price and unit cost, I'm going to right-click and Set Format, and we're going to format these as comma, because we do want a 2 decimal precision. Again, on the next 3 items, large numbers, we don't want to have decimal precision. So for gross margin, revenue, and COGS, I'm going to set format as rounded. And the last item in the list, gross margin %, I'll right-click that one and set format to percentage. That completes the build of the measures dimension. That gets us to the middle of the second page of the handout. Now we're going to build our versions dimension. To build the versions dimension, we'll hit a plus tab to get a blank canvas, double click the middle template with the dotted rectangle again, expand out the databases if you had that collapsed. And so we have our content tree, and we're going to expand Bacon 2020, right click dimensions, and create dimension. We will enter our login name, followed by versions to name this dimension, and press create. This dimension will be very easy. We'll hit the blue button again for enter new members and enter the 3 names. Do not press commit until you've entered the 3 names. Actual, press enter, forecast, enter, budget, enter. Oh, little typo on mine. Sorry about that, folks. My earbuds lost power. I'll go ahead and edit. I'll have to commit and recreate budget. Sorry about that. So if you do have a typo, not to worry. We can trash budget. And I've lost the whole thing. Let me start scratch. Right click, and I'm going to create dimension again. more versions. It already exists, so I'll call it more 2 versions. Great. Into the wizard, enter new members, actual, forecast, budget. So that was easy. Versions dimension, 3 elements. We could build aggregations here if we were to have some calculated items like actual minus budget to get some variance going, or we could build some percent variance calculations as well. But for this example, we'll just leave it with those 3 elements or 3 members, and we're all set. And next we're going to create the periods dimension. I'll create a fresh canvas, choose the rectangular icon, and we'll right-click the dimensions yet again and name it, but this time do not click into the wizard. So let's just apply a name, more periods for me. I'm going to create. And sorry about that. Let me try that again. I'm stumbling on some already existing dimensions. So that's why we name our dimensions with our unique login name to keep them separate. All right, do not click into the wizard. And this time we're going to leverage Excel to bring in items. And so we grab our Excel handout, which I'll drag into the screen here. And that contains 39 members. There's 3 years of 12 months each, and then the full year totals for each of those 3 years. And so I'm going to shift click in Excel, copy all of those. And when I get over into Workspace, I just paste onto this page right here. And that allows me to paste all 39 members. So you can see the power there of being able to author your dimension within Excel, which you're a lot more comfortable with, and the ability to enter and edit member names and then just paste them all in when you're finished. A little bit of work left to do here is building the roll-ups for the full year totals. So I'm going to shift click 2018, all 12 months, and I'll drag them into the 2018 full year. Likewise with 2019, I will shift click all the months, 2019-01 through 2019-12. I'll drag and drop those into 2019. Then I'll shift click 2020-01 to 12. And I'll drag and drop those into 2020. And that completes our periods dimension. All right, that gets us to the top of page 3. And we've created 3 dimensions already via manual methods. But the next, we're going to use Turbo Integrator processes. And so this is a much better method of building dimensions. And we also use Turbo Integrator to load data. And Turbo Integrators are ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. And so that allows us to look at a data source and apply some scripting to what elements we want to load, or what parts of that data source or data table that we want to load into TM1. So we are connected to a SQL Server instance on another machine. And I'm going to highlight the Process tab. Also close up databases to suppress the content tree, give us more room to work. And in the Process tab, I have some pre-built processes for us, and I want to make sure not to make any edits on these processes. So we can all click into these processes and review, but do not edit any of the code, as that would trip everybody else up. And we're going to go to the third to the last one in the list and create customer. And in the create customer, we see a process has been written for us, and just a brief walkthrough, which you can follow along on your screens. Don't click on anything, no. We see the data source that contains a query, and then an example of what that query pulls back from the data source based on that query. We have a parameters tab. Parameters are very valuable in that they allow us to apply information when we run the process to customize the code contained in the script. So for this example, we're all in this workshop trying to build a dimension using the same process, and we want to apply a unique name to the dimension we build so that we don't have any issues with non-unique names of our dimensions. Therefore, we have a parameter called pdim, which we'll go ahead and name when we run the process. Lastly, I'll tab over to script, and this is the custom script that has been built beforehand, which applies all the customization and code that brings in the members from our data source, as well as alias or name information and different attributes about this dimension we're trying to build. So we will go ahead and run this process. And the pop-up for the parameters shows up, and we need to apply our unique name. And I will kind of call mine with your login name. Mine is more, followed by customers. And when I say OK, that is going to run for about 2 seconds, and I get a green success message at the top. And that has created my customers dimension. And next we'll create a regions dimension. So going to the second drop-down box on the same tab, we don't have to move anywhere. We just hit that drop-down and we can change which process we're touching. And this one's going to be create regions. Question from Chris, should we be seeing the user ID customers dimension right away? Ran successfully, but I'm not seeing it. Good question, Chris. We would have to refresh the database to see it. So we're going to do that later. But rest assured, it is there if you didn't get a warning message. So switching over to dim create region, it's going to look very similar, very similar process and code to build this dimension. So data source with the query. We have the same type of parameter to name this specific dimension when we run it. And script on the third tab is the customization to bring in the appropriate fields from the data source. When we press run, make sure we fill out the parameter correctly. Mine will be more regions. And I get the little green message after 2 seconds. It says created regions dimension successfully. And when we're done with that, we're going to do a third one, which is create products. I will skip all the specifics, but all pretty much the same stuff. When I press run, I got to be sure and fill out the parameter correctly. And it'll be more products. Okay. So now we've built the products. We're at the bottom of page 3. And I'm going to go ahead and expand the content tree. The database is on the left. And I will click the refresh the tree. And so refresh allows it to bring in new objects into the tree. Okay. And I see a lot of progress here. Looks like a very long list, so I like that. And we've built out our 6 dimensions. So I see 6 per user here. Glad to see everybody's doing well. Is this user interface completely replace architect? Yes, question from Chris. 99%. Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the security is still somewhat outstanding in terms of creating a new client and group in security, but you can do that using a turbo integrator process. So I'm not sure if there's anything remaining in architect that we still need architect for. Didn't hear from Rob, so we'll keep on chugging here. But yeah, that is the idea, Chris. There we go. That workspace does completely replace architect as a development tool. All right, so now we're going to do another new tab. And we'll do the rectangle background. And let's find our dimension in the tree. I'm going to scroll to Be More and Products, and we're going to grab the products dimension and drag it out onto our blank canvas. The trick I'm going to do is grab these crosshairs in the middle, top middle of the pane. And if I drag that on top of this widget here, it right sizes the whole thing. We'll do that a couple times throughout. Okay. With the products dimension, we're going to go ahead and hit the little tag. It looks like a sale tag. And that's going to show us all of the attributes and the aliases that were built as a part of that Turbo Integrator process. We have aliases on the right, which are very helpful because you know, the numeric IDs don't tell us a whole lot. So it's very helpful to have an alias included, which identifies that particular product. Okay, and then we notice our attributes of size, color, and brand. So just little modifiers on each of these members. They give us more information and thus unlock the power to do more analysis on this dimension. Products dimension, obviously one of the primary candidates for utilizing the attribute-driven hierarchies. All right, so we're at the top of page 4, and we're going to jump into creating the attribute-driven hierarchies. So it's important that we all have our own products dimension so that we don't trip on each other when creating these hierarchies. There's a wizard that makes it very easy to do. And so to run that wizard, I'm going to go ahead and click on brands to highlight the whole column. It glows in yellow. And I right-click, create hierarchy. It says, are you sure? I say, okay. And it creates it and then jumps over to that new hierarchy. So I notice in the upper left box with the kind of stacked pyramid, it says brand. And so what it has done is it has built subtotals for every value within the brand attributes. So I have trail chief and I have a trail chief subtotal. And then I scroll down and I have star and I have a star subtotal. And so every brand now has rolled up all of these specific products under that brand. In addition, it has created a others by default. And others is nice because it has automatically created kind of a junk bucket for anybody that doesn't have attribute information assigned. So we have a no product, doesn't have an attribute, therefore it's tucked into others. And that way the integrity of all brand contains every leaf element or leaf member because we do want our totals to all tie to each other. So if you had one that was missing some members and one that had all the members, your totals wouldn't align. That would be problematic. So that was building a attribute-driven hierarchy. We can repeat those steps for color and size. Highlight the column, right-click, create hierarchy, confirm. And one more time, right-click the size column, create hierarchy, and confirm. On the middle of page 4, we see a screenshot that if I hit my drop down of the hierarchies, it shall display, I think I'm frozen. Got frozen there for a second. Okay, created successfully. If I hit the drop down for the hierarchies, I see 5. The top is my default, which replicates the name of the dimension itself. So that's the primary roll-up. that we use. The bottom one is also created by default, and that is leaves. So it's just every n level. So I click on that. And so every leaf level element or lowest level is in the leaves. And as they're added to the dimension, they are also added to that rollup. And of course, the other three are the ones that we created. Now we do have the ability to create far more detailed attribute-driven hierarchies using Turbo Integrator. So if we wanted to do some more complex scripting, we could create 5 or 10 levels, but just this wizard-based setup is just the 3 levels, the n level or lowest level, the subtotal based on whatever the attribute names are, and then the grand total.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, so I went back and I think I know what Jasper was asking about on the time dimension. So when you create a new dimension in Workspace, you have the ability to let it build out the time dimension for you. And you chose to do what you did because we had the periods dimension built out in that Excel file. But the alternative would have been to allow Workspace to build that dimension out for you using the customize as time. That was the button that's on the screen when you create a new dimension to allow you to customize that time dimension. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And yeah, Jasper, us TM1 developers kind of set in our ways. So we generally just use a saved Turbo Integrator process from our files to create the entire periods dimension, and it makes it pretty seamless. So I haven't actually tested out that custom time dimension function. But yeah, thank you for the question. On the bottom page 4, I have we're going to build the sales cube. So now that we have built the 6 dimensions, we are going to collect those into our very own sales cube. Data in PA is stored in cube files.cuv extension, and therefore our data, everybody's data in this scenario is going to be independent of each other because we're all saving our own CUV file. In a live example, a production environment, generally we're all working out of the same cube. That way we can obviously work out of the same data set and collaborate and perform plans on the same cubes so that our colleagues see the results. If you do get stuck in the architecture side of things, once we've successfully built and loaded the cube and we get into the reporting section of the workshop, you'll be able to use the common sales cube for analysis if you like. All right, so to do so, we need the content tree on the left, and we don't need to create any new tabs on this one. We can just expand out the database's tree, and we're going to expand cubes this time. And K-Stroud is heading ahead of us. Excellent. We're going to right-click cubes and create cube. So similar to how we created dimension, this time right-click cubes and create cube. Same naming convention. Put your login in there first, and then sales. And my name's first, so all mine are nicely at the top, but yours should all be alphabetized together. So hopefully you can grab all of them in one fell swoop. Shift-click and push them to the right window. Very, very important at the top of page 5 is that we order the dimensions in the right order, because otherwise the TI processes to load data do not work. So it's very imperative that we have versions first, followed by regions, products, down to customers, then periods, and measures last. Also, side note, measures always has to be last when building TM1 cubes because measures can contain string data, and the way that TM1 stores that string data and the write back of string data has to be the last dimension in the cube. Not all that important for this training, but thought I'd mention. All right, so I have my 6 dimensions. I'm going to double check that it's versions, regions, products, customers, periods, measures, and I'll click create. All right, good. We got about 6 other folks in there. And we see that it pops up and it is empty. So this is kind of just a shell, which contains all the possible intersections of data that I could add to the cube. I think mine disappeared, but yeah, you should have an empty cube in front of you. All right, so next up, we're going to load that cube, and I'm going to suppress my database. Again, give me more space to work with, and I'll hit the Process Worksheet tab. Similar idea as the dimension building processes. This time we have a data loading process. It's called Data Load Sales Cube. I will comment that the data set in Go Sales is extremely large. It's 150 million records or so, which we can load in about an hour. Of course, if 10 of us jump in here and try to load that at the same time, we'll be sitting here for an hour. So instead, we are very filtered down to one particular branch, 1 year of data, one branch, and one customer code. So, our analysis will be pretty thin as far as the data set we're bringing in, but at least allow us to demonstrate the concepts. And I'll note that the sales cube, the common sales cube, has been given the full load. All right, again, don't edit anything in the process. Parameters, we have 2 parameters this time. Important that we call a versions dimension that we created, because this segregates out actual data from budget data. And lastly, script. That's what's going to allow the ETL to work to transform that data and load it properly. So we can just click run, fill out our 2 parameters properly. And so mine would be more sales and more versions. I'll go ahead and click OK. Take your time, fill those out properly. This is about a 22-second load. Everything goes smoothly. And our server does have 96 cores, so that's about 9 cores apiece, I think. Any questions, feel free to type them into the chat. I think we're keeping up with those pretty well. Let's take a peek at the back end, see how our processing's doing. To have a couple of loads complete for K MacGyver and B more. Be looking for the green message at the top of your screen. Good question, Jasper. Yeah, and to make matters worse, do one worse here. I've noticed in 57 that we don't even get feedback in the list anymore. So previously, when we run our process, we would see it spin, a little icon to spin right here. Now I don't even have that. But in the old TI editor, we used to have good feedback in terms of how many records were being processed. All right, so I'm going to peek at the log here.
Yeah, it looks like a few of them are running and finishing here.
Good.
In the 20-something second range is what they seem to be running. So.
Yep, you got C period and K Stroud worked. But yeah, this is a big unknown here of running this volume of students. But it seems to be going pretty smooth here. And nothing's failed at this point, so it's just competing for resources. I believe everybody that attempted the process is complete. About 5 of us. If anybody else is having challenges, we're about to get into the reporting side, so you can rejoin us here, and you don't have to worry about having a properly architected cube. You can just use the common sales cube. We're going to run one more process here, and this one runs a lot quicker. And so for the second little box here, we hit the drop down and hit data product forecast. Actually load this one to budgets, but the table was called product forecast, so thought I'd bring in 2019 data as budget, and we'll jump right to the run button. Fill out our parameters correctly. It's the sales cube, log in first and then sales, versions, dimensions, be more versions. I press OK, and I get the green message right away. So that one was only 2 seconds. Question from Stefan, can the attribute-based dimensions contain a hierarchy, as in total, region, sub-region, country, or do we need multiple attributes then? Great question. Yes, we can make them very detailed using Turbo Integrator, but using the wizard that we used, it's very straightforward, and it's just 3 levels. So we just have the total, subtotal, and leaf in the wizard. But we are able to customize those hierarchies to a lot of levels using custom code. And I'll take one more glance at the log here. I'll keep going. And looks like 6 of us ran the process, and it ran in 1 second. Good. All right, that gets us to middle bottom of page 5, and I did forget the business rules, so we'll cover that as well. Just to give you the comprehensive experience, we're going to tab over to rules. And hoping sales comes up by default. That would be great. Yeah, I think it does. So we want to start with sales, don't navigate away from it. And these are the rules we need, which have already been built. And so we can simply highlight the whole thing, including the skip check. And we'll Control C to copy those. And we can paste them over into our own cube. And save. I think the save spins indefinitely, but it does save them in a matter of a second. So I'm not concerned about this spinning disk in the middle. All right, just a quick jog through rules, somewhat similar to Excel kind of based formatting here, but that gives us the ability to do multiplication and division on members in our metrics dimension or any dimension, and do KPIs and complex calculations and ratios. We can also use rules to move data cube to cube within the system dynamically. So if we have a rule to transfer, example being like a sales planning cube and a headcount planning cube that need to push data to a financial summary cube, we can build in rules that move the summarized data over. So like, you know, the total salaries and the total benefits and the total revenue could get pushed from the sales cube and the headcount cube dynamically over to financial summary as the data is entered. So as someone's working through their plan, they can enter in information and that gets moved over to the summary automatically for everybody to review. Now, as luck would have it, you've completed creating the cube and loaded with actuals and budget data, built your dimensions, and built your KPIs, and we're exactly at the 1 hour mark. So we can take that bio break, and we will resume in 3 minutes to do reporting, planning, and analysis. Feel free to ask any questions during the break. Let us know, yeah, if you have any questions, or we can go over the main cube that you can use if you haven't been able to architect your own cube.
I see work, Brian, right on the dot at 1:30 for the bio break. So we'll just do a quick bio break. We'll do it for 10 minutes. and we'll resume at 1:40. Does that sound good?
I'm more. Let's call it 5 minutes then.
5 minutes. All right,
keep
5 minutes.
Got a lot to cover. Yeah.
Brian's a little more strict than I am.
Yeah.
So 1:35 we'll resume.
I'll actually step out.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm back. We have 2 more minutes here. Alrighty. We will jump right back into it here with the second half, and this is going to be focused on reporting. So we're going to do reporting, analysis, and a little bit of forecasting as well. And welcome back, Jesper. And so I'm going to go ahead and click the home icon. And so we're now going to build a report using the cube we've created and analyze the attribute-driven hierarchies we've created, perform some forecasting using various methods, and build out a dashboard. Note, if you have any issues building your cube in the first section, sorry, there's an airplane. If you had any issues building your own sales cube, there is a common sales cube that you'll be able to use for this portion of the workshop. Note that we would like you to not participate in the forecast seed, because if everybody's using that same sales cube, you could be stumbling on each other trying to punch data into it. So just sit back and watch that section, but everything else, feel free to perform. So we're going to be creating a report, and we're going to create a gross margin by product. And we'll start off on the home icon. So way in the upper left, we have a home icon. Gets us back to the welcome screen. Here should be identical to mine. And we can double click on reports and analysis or single click. That gives us all the existing content down below, or I can click create in the upper right, the blue button, and I'll create a book from template. Book from template is important because we want to define, we've been defining this template the whole time with the dotted outline. We are kind of part-time web designers when we build reports in PAW, because we need to be cognizant of the user experience and to make sure we build a report in a way that the user is going to get to see the content, preferably all in one page. In a web session, you've been to 1,000 websites, I'm sure, you don't want to scroll right to left. You don't want to scroll up and down if you don't have to. So we try to get all the content fit to one screen. There's where all these kind of PowerPoint looking slides come in, is our ability to use a template to keep it all to one screen and divide it off into quadrants or sectors. Again, I'm going to use the single rectangle double click. And I'm on the middle of page 6. And we're going to expand the databases from the left. And we can navigate to the cube we've created by expanding Bacon 2020 and cubes. And I'll right click Be More Sales and add a new view. Once I've added the new view to the canvas, I can tuck away the databases. And again, that sales cube is out there if anybody needs it. So I employ everybody. We have 18 people on the call, only 6 folks with cubes. So please use that sales cube and try this out. I tuck away the database content tree back to the left, give me more room to work with. And not exactly the format I was looking for here is, the default, the first time you build a cube, it's totally disorganized, and you got to work on it a little bit to get the report you want to see. So to do that, I'm going to double click the periods dimension box. And each one of these is our dimensions. We see the 6 dimensions we've created. So we'll call those dimension boxes throughout. So if I double click periods, it opens up the set editor, formerly called the subset editor. And I see all of the members for the periods that I brought in. But for this exercise, I just want to focus on 2019. So I can shift click all of the 2019s. Single click the 2019, hold shift and press 2019 12 at the bottom to highlight the whole list. Big green checkbox and the ribbon at the top will allow me to keep. It's going to keep those 13 items. And then I also want to drag 2019 to the bottom. If they don't all fit on one screen, we have this little icon in the upper left corner to maximize. I'm going to use that. That way I can easily drag 2019 to the bottom. And when I see that little red line, it allows me to drop. All right, and I can restore to original size that set editor, bring it back down to size. Once I have that created properly, I do want to save that subset in case I need it later. I can hit the floppy disk at the bottom. Again, I want the 12 months and then 2019 at the bottom. I'll save. And I'll type in the name of 2019, and we'll not share public. We should be able to all use the same name because we're saving to our own individual dimensions. For folks using the common cube, let's not save that. It's already been created for you. Apply and close. All right, so that tightens it up a bit. We've only loaded data for 2019. So we got rid of all the zeros and we're just focused on the data that we've loaded. We notice we're on the actuals version in the upper left, and total regions, total products, total customers. If we did build our own cube, the regions and customers are going to be kind of irrelevant because we did only load one member from each of those due to data size. So products will have tons of products, but regions, you have one member, customers, you have one member. So we'll just maintain the total on those, reporting the full total. All right, I'm on step number 10, and we're going to reorient. One of the really cool new features in PAW, which I like the most, is the ability to grab a hold of one single element and drag it into what we call the title bar or the filter bar at the top, and have it filter to that item. So before, you'd have to drag the dimension up there and then select which one you want. They've quickly combined that by just dragging 2019 into the top. And now it is selected 2019. I'm sorry, I was supposed to drag that on top of products. So drag 2019 on top of products, and you should have products on rows and 2019 on columns. If you mess that up like I did, you can just grab a hold of the dimension box, put it in this gray rectangle, which indicates the rows. You see this little row icon on the left here. All right, so we're getting a little warmer here. We got our measures going across the top. We got our products going down the rows. And so it's a little bit more insightful analysis here. We have all this numeric code, so we don't have our product names. So that's not helpful. So in step number 11, at the top of page 7, we're going to double click products to open that set editor. And within products, I want to turn on what's called the aliases. So I hit the mugshot right in the middle. It looks like a little person, the head and shoulders. And then I can select the ID name alias. And voila, those are my descriptions that I loaded. Much better. That actually means something to my users. So once I've turned those on, I can apply and close. And then in step number 12, I'm going to do some editing of the set on the grid as opposed to in that set editor window. And I can just right click total products row. So I'll right click the total products name, and I'm going to expand to level 001. Another cool feature in the workspace application we're using here is that ability. Before, we had to jump into all these different subset editors, and you know, it took a lot more time consuming to build out those rows and columns. And then in step 13 or 12, yeah, one more step. We're just going to rename the tab name in 13. So if we click, left click the tab 1 and the little pencil icon, I can call this gross margin. All right, so fairly quickly, we were able to slice and dice this cube and determine that the money is in outdoor protection equipment, right? We got gross margin in the 30s on our other product lines, but outdoor protection has the big margins. So let's try to sell more of those. And again, these last 4 columns are all calculated by the last 3 columns are calculated by the business rules that we built. So the only data being loaded is the first 3 columns. And then gross margin is a consolidation of revenue and COGS. Revenue and COGS are calculations of quantity times price and cost. And gross margin percent, of course, is the calculation to get that ratio. All right, so that completes our gross margin report. Next, we're going to do the analyzing attribute-driven hierarchies, as the title implies. We can do a lot of plagiarism today, just borrow from what we've built already. And so to do that, first I will open up a new tab, the little plus symbol on the worksheets tab, kind of similar to Excel. And we'll use our rectangle dotted line as usual. And then navigate back to gross margin and click anywhere to get the frame to highlight. So anywhere you want, and you'll see the frame highlights and you'll get the icons across the top. Icons across the top is all new in PAW 57. You used to have to go in this little blue box and have a pop out, but now they're just at the ready. I really like it. And fifth from the right-hand side, you have one called duplicate. I click that duplicate. I don't see anything, but what it's done is replicated this view on top of itself. So now I have two copies of the same thing. And I grab the crosshairs, which is center field right in the middle top. It says move widget if I hover over it. And I can drag that on top of tab 1 until it illuminates. And now I have an identical view in both tabs. All right, so that gets us to step number 6, middle of the page on page 7. For the attribute-driven hierarchies, we're going to isolate quantity. And so this is kind of complicated as what I did previously in the gross margin exercise, is dragging just quantity and we want to put it up on the title bar. But to do that, we don't want to replace any of these dimensions. We want to hover in the middle. I'm sorry, I lost my place. When a small yellow rectangle appears, yeah, we're going to drop in between. Okay, so now we are left with no columns and just the products on the rows. And we're going to go ahead and expand products because we want to isolate the personal accessories knives. If I expand number 993, I can see 962 knives. I'm going to right click that and keep it. And so I have just my knives. I'll scroll up if I need to. And here's where I'm going to add additional hierarchies. So we're totally focused on just quantity for 2019, just the knives product line. But I've added all that additional attribute information so I can really analyze what types of knives I'm selling. I'm going to right click the Be More Products or whatever your login name products dimension box is. I'm going to add related hierarchy. And I'll click brand and insert. I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to click color and insert. And then I'm going to right click, do the same thing, add related hierarchy and grab size. All right, so now I have one dimension and 3 virtual dimensions. Those are my attribute-driven hierarchies that I created. And for the instructions, we're going to put color onto columns. The columns is the big dotted box that says columns. Also going to get rid of the default hierarchy box called products. So I'm going to drag that up to title because I'm just picking knives. So I don't really have a use for it. So again, I'll plop it in between a couple dimension boxes. I'll see that golden triangle appear, or golden rectangle appear, and release. And so that removes that default hierarchy. Oh, I'm sorry. Lost my place here. So that went back to total products. I'll need to navigate back to knives if I need to. And if that, that's a really long list, so feel free to double click into the dimension box. You can search for it if you like too. Type 962 into the search box, it comes up right quick. I'm going to click the replace and close if you ended up going this route, but just want to make sure we have 962 knives isolated. All right, barely any data, very sparse, but we do have zero suppression. We get zero suppression. I'm going to highlight the entire view by just clicking anywhere. You see the little border appears and all the icons appear at the top. And about the sixth from the left is the zero suppression. So I can click on zero suppression. It's a zero with a line going through it. That tightens it up nice. And I also want to get rid of all the totals because it's kind of a little bit of noise. So anything that says all, I'm going to right click and hide. I'm going to hide all brand. I'm going to hide all size. I'm going to hide all color. Again, pretty sparse data set here, but it does actually, this particular view of the data gives us insights that we have two competitors for red knives at the 14.5-inch variety, and it looks like Extreme is selling, the Extreme brand is selling 50% more than the Edge brand. Whereas historically, we would just have the products dimension and we wouldn't have any further insights into what kind of knives those were other than a SKU number. So hoping these attribute-driven hierarchies can unlock some insights into your product line or whatever dimension would fit best with your organization. I do see at the top of page 8, we have a screenshot. So hopefully we ended up in the right place here. And if you're using the main sales cube, I imagine you'd have a much bigger data set and probably have a lot better insights to glean from this. I'll go ahead and rename the tab by left clicking tab 1 and hit the pencil to call it hierarchies. We got a question. Chris has to leave. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Chris, please join us upcoming on Tuesday. I'll give a quick plug here. We're doing a YouTube live stream of the new PA57, which we're looking at right now, but we'll try to get into more of the brand new features like the AI forecasting and plans and applications. So hope you can join us then. More details on our website. All right, next we're going to go to seeding a forecast. So in this lesson, we're going to create a baseline for our forecast by copying or seeding from previous year historical values. So this is pretty common. We have last year's actuals, and we can use that as a starting point for our budgeting process. I want you to observe the power of the breakback feature, which takes the copied data when you're moving it from actuals into forecast, and it will break back the data across all intersections according to the spread profile of the actuals data. That probably sounded pretty complicated, but basically, if we were to think of every cell in the cube as kind of a weighting, like every individual region and product and customer, then when we copy that number over and say increase it by 20%, it's going to observe that weighting profile and apply that extra 20% across all those intersections evenly, or weighted appropriately to their size. So let's jump into it. If you are using the common sales cube, please just observe this step so that we're not tripping over each other. And again, we're going to start off with the opening a new tab, copying from the gross margin, highlighting that view. We highlight it, single click anywhere, and it has the border around it, and then we can click the duplicate icon that's fifth from the right. Grab the crosshairs to drag and drop it onto tab. And if you drop it onto tab 1, when tab 1 is highlighted, you have a replicated copy. That gets us to step 6 of seeding the forecast, and we're going to swap the products dimension with the versions dimension by dragging and dropping. We'll grab a hold of products and drag it on top of versions. And that quickly swaps those two dimensions. And now I have my versions on rows. I notice that I have actuals and budget because I ran those TI processes to load those two versions. I have a blank forecast. And this is all for 2019. Ideally, we would do this for 2020 and copy 2019's data, but just to keep it simple, we're just going to stay in the 2019 period. I got a screenshot for you at the top of page 9. Make sure we're in alignment here. And we're going to perform the seed by right-clicking the intersection of quantity and forecast. So this first cell here, if you're a Battleship or Excel fan, we can call that cell A2. I single click it and right click it. I can pick spread data. A little wizard shows up. It says all the different spread kinds I can do. So I have users that have gotten very adapted to this list and are able to take advantage of all these different spread profiles to really speed up their budgeting and forecasting. So really helpful to learn all these different techniques. I'm going to highlight relative proportional, which is close to the bottom. Second from the end. And I want to make sure and change out the forecast version and change it to actual, because my seed is going to come from actual. And the next box, we're going to go ahead and type in a value. So this one will do 1.3 million. So instead of just selling 1.1 million quantity, I will step it up to 1.3. There are some shortcuts in PAW where all I have to type is 1.3M, and it knows that. And I see my 1.3 appear. Not very impressive right now, but once you dig into all the details, like if I were to quickly swap quantity with products, I could see that it has distributed that spread profile evenly across actuals and has moved the additional 130,000 units into the appropriate product categories down to the detail level as per the spread profile of the actuals. I'm going to reverse that so I get back on the same page. So we populated our quantity based on actuals and a small increase there. We're going to do that step again, and we're going to try the relative percent adjustment this time in step number 11. And so we'll highlight cell B2, unit price forecast. And we'll right click spread data and the bottom choice relative percent adjustment. And again, we'll navigate back to actual in the wizard and press next. And this time we're going to say that sales, or that we're going to up our price by 5%. So if I put 105 and type replace on the replace button, it's going to up that unit price by 5%. Of course, this is the consolidated unit price, so we have to get down into all the detailed items to see what the individual units cost and how they've been upped by 5%. And we see when I put in a new unit price that my revenue appears and that I'm making 100% margins because all of our stuff is free. So let's go ahead and fix that by putting in a unit cost. Same exercise, we'll right click the unit cost and spread data. I'm going to do another relative percent adjustment. It's the one at the bottom. I'm going to match the profile of actuals again. And let's only increase cost by 3%. So we'll try a 103 replace. Make sure you replace that number, 103%, so a 3% increase of costs. And now I have a completed forecast. Just to get a better view of this, in step number 18, step 17, I'm going to rename this tab to Forecast Seed. Single click tab 1 and type Forecast Seed after clicking the pencil. And then in step 18, I can jump to the gross margin. And I'm going to drag gross margin on top of versions. So right in the middle here, I'll grab the gross margin version or gross margin measure, and I will drag and drop it on top of versions in the upper left. And that gives us a quick display of the new forecast that we've entered by all the different product categories. So I can see margin has gone up considerably for camping, mountaineering, personal accessories, and outdoor equipment, because we increased the quantity, we increased the prices, and we modestly increased the cost. I'm going to back out of that using the undo button, upper left. The undo button's only been around a few years in PAWS, so before then, things were a lot more troubling when we made mistakes. All right, next, got a blurb about predictive forecasting. It released 8 days ago. The PM Square team's still working out some of the kinks. And so far, we've only been able to get it to work with the supplied sample data. Of course, I don't want to use sample data. Rob did that in his presentation yesterday, so we covered that. But we'll try it on our data set here. So I'm just going to present here. Please don't follow. Please don't do this on your own. But just to demonstrate it really quickly, we have shown here the products and the months. So a simple display of all the different individual products. And I have months on the grid for 2019 through 2020. Looks like only half of the actuals have filled in for 2020 because that's where we are this year. And so we'll go ahead and try to forecast out August through the rest of the year using the predictive forecasting feature. I'm going to highlight the first input level item I come through. A couple things I've noticed is I made sure to load 2018 data to the common sales queue because it didn't like it if I only had 12 months of data. So I think that is a component to it, that you do have to have enough actuals history for it to perform a prediction. Also, I do want to get a detailed item because otherwise the system gets choked up with trying to do too many calculations. So if I were to go total products, it's going to try to perform predictive across 100 different SKUs. That can tie up the system. If I just highlight the first element I come to, and this new little icon in the far right of the top bar brings up the forecasting pane. And I'll adjust my forecast period start down to August of 2020. And December of 2020 is the end. And you can click a preview and it'll spin for a while. And unfortunately, the only results I've been getting are the same value, same final value from July of 19 repeated. So it doesn't look like it is working quite right. Could be to the effect that the reason being that my data set does not have a correlation. So if the algorithm can't find a correlation, then it can't predict a trend and therefore just prints out the same results. So that could be one of the reasons. I do have a call out to Martin Phillips, who created the functionality, and we're going to try to do a call on Monday, so I'll have some fresh information for our live stream for you on Tuesday. As you see, prediction accuracy, pretty low. The results over here on the right don't look too good. Statistical details, we can wave those around to our data scientists in the organization. Sure, they're more able to decipher what all these mean. And so a whole bunch of different statistical calculations that went into this. Also incorporates 8 different algorithms, I believe. So it does choose the optimal forecast, most accurate based on those 8 algorithms. So it is a great new feature that's forthcoming, and of course it's still being worked on, but it is out there and being launched to cloud customers in a couple weeks as well. And I can imagine it'll continue to get better. So much better than the method we did on the seed of just saying, hey, let's take last year's numbers, up it by 5% and see what we get, right? Using the statistics, using the algorithms, it's a much better approach to our forecasting. And of course, planning analytics leading the way and right at the cutting edge of incorporating that into the package. No extra cost either. So all included in the same product, and not aware of any competitors that have that wrapped into a planning solution. All right, that gets us to building a dashboard, and that's the final lesson. Got 23 minutes left, so hopefully wrap this up in about 10, and then some time for Q&A. We'll call it a day. So in this lesson, we're going to add a visualization to our original gross margin report in order to create a simple dashboard. So I'm at the top of page 10, and we will duplicate out yet another new pane, our new tab using the plus symbol. And this time, don't do the dotted rectangle. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom left. I'm surprised that there's no half the top, half the bottom window. So we'll just have to make do with half the top and then two quadrants at the bottom. And so we can kind of see that soft outline in the background. Jump back over to gross margin so we can plagiarize ourselves from the work we did earlier. Single click anywhere brings up the icons, allows you to duplicate. Now we have 2 copies of the same view. We'll use the crosshairs in the middle to drag it onto tab 1. All right, so I have data at the top, and I want to single click that view, grab it by the crosshairs, and I want to drag it on top of this little icon here, and I'll hold it for a while so everybody can see it. I'm sorry, it scrolled down on me. Try that again. I'm gonna try to expand the full screen here. This icon in the upper right, give me more screen to work with. That's something you can toggle on and off if you need to. I'll turn it back off, and there it is. Okay, so I've got the crosshairs again. Again, I'm going to grab it and try to put it right on top of that big blue box in the middle of the screen. It's actually gray until I pair the 2 up. When I pair the 2 up, it right sizes that view I've been working with and puts it properly in that quadrant, just like I want it to. So we see I have the half pane, the top half is taken up by the data, and then the bottom half I'm going to put in a visualization. All right, so we'll single click the top half, and again, the crosshairs and the outline appears, and we can replicate that piece again. So a copy of a copy. And we will drag the second copy down to the bottom and hit the bottom left expander. Crosshairs on top of the expand, and that will right side it in that bottom left quadrant. But I want this one to take up the whole bottom half, so I can, similar to a picture frame here, I can just grab the middle right resizer, drag it on out so that it's is the full size. So identical copies, top and bottom, is how we set up the dashboard. And then from there, we rotate and change the data view, which is called an exploration. We're going to change that to a line view. Before I do that, though, I have to make sure that my dimensions are properly oriented. I'm on step 8 in the middle of page 10. Just check in there. I'm going to nest the periods dimension on rows by dragging periods directly to the left of products. Periods is up here on the title bar, and I have to be really careful, hold on to it, and drag it directly to the left of products when I see the golden rectangle appear. And now I have what we call nested dimensions. Periods nested by products. And in step number 9, I'm going to edit the set. So we're going to edit the periods dimension by double clicking. I want to make sure and get rid of 2019, the full year total. I want to keep the 12 individual months, but I'll highlight the total and X it out. The X at the top ribbon to remove it. Oh no, I seem to have lost the January month. I'm gonna throw those out and bring it back over. Hopefully you didn't lose yours. If click all my 2019s, keep, there we go. Again, you just want the 12 months. Apply and close when you're done. Step number 10, I want to hide total products and no product because I don't want those to show up in my visual. And there are some settings in properties to adjust your visualizations in order to suppress totals, but I haven't noticed them in 57 yet. So I'm not sure if they're missing, but I just decided to manually hide those items so we have the visualization looking how we want it to. All right, very important, once we've hidden our total and our no product, is that we're going to synchronize the top pane with the bottom pane. Synchronization is pretty common in Workspace in that we want all of our objects working together, even across the entire workbook as well. So if I change, say I'm working with actuals and then I change it to budget in one particular dimension editor, then all the other visualizations now show budget. Especially if we're focusing on a particular region or customer or product, it's nice to have that reflected throughout the experience so that you're not sitting there editing all these little widgets one at a time. So to do that, I need to single click each pane and control click the other one. So when I control click so that both of them are highlighted, I see borders around both of them. And I hit the properties in the far upper right. That pops out the properties window, a whole lot of different properties you can configure. We're just going to jump to the last one, which is synchronize. And I'm going to turn on synchronize dimensions, but I'm going to turn off the periods and the products. So I have 5 switches as indicated on step 12. The reason I turn off periods and products is because I have manually changed the list of periods and list of products, and so I don't want those to synchronize because I took them out on purpose out of the bottom pane. Once I've done that, I can close up, click the properties to minimize. Now I'm at the top of page 11, and now I will change my bottom screen. So I got to unhighlight them. To do that, I just click up in the blank space at the top. And so now I have nothing selected. And this time I need to reselect the bottom pane by single clicking anywhere in the bottom pane. I see in my ribbon that I have all the icons, including exploration right in the middle, because the data grid is called the exploration. When I click that, it says recommended, but then it has all visualizations. I expand that, and I have 20 different ones to choose from. Also recently added waterfall, so I will try to incorporate that into the presentation Tuesday. we're just going to go with a line chart. And it's important to that we properly orient our dimensions to get this view to be how we want it. So sometimes it can be challenging properly orienting your dimensions to get the visualization experience that you're hoping for. But thought this is a pretty good visualization here. Once we have that, I can go ahead and expand the entire dashboard, give me more space. And most importantly, I noticed that if I change actuals to budget by single clicking the actuals dimension box at the upper left, the numbers change and the visualization changes with it. I'm not seeing it change, so possible that I did not click on the synchronization properly. Both selected, properties, synchronize, periods and products. Yeah, we'll try to turn it off, turn it back on. Might just be running slowly because we're all trying to do it at the same time.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Try selecting the first, the cross tab and do the properties and make sure that's set separate on the synchronize.
Sure.
And then check the chart as well. If you just click on the chart and not have them both selected.
Okay. Ah, yeah. There we go. All right. That time we'll try switching to budgets. There we go. Thank you, Rob. And again, we're kind of out of space, so we'll click that maximizer to take up more screen space. Screen space always at a premium when it comes to workspace. One other thing I could show quickly is the ability to get rid of the dimensions. So I can click this little caret here to hide those dimensions and give me a lot more white space if we had things to fill with. All right, so that is our simple dashboard. I'm going to rename tab 1, call it dashboard to complete the exercise. And that's our simple dashboard in this exercise. We built a dashboard synchronized with the data grid and the visualization together. And yeah, we can cram in as much dashboards, visualizations, data clusters as we want to fit the screen, but usually the user experience being the determining factor there. So putting too much content becomes unusable. You really want to avoid scrolling when possible, so try to fit it all on one screen there. And also in the new release, they've addressed screen resolution, which is a real bugaboo in the past. Page size, we have different screen sizes, because if I build this on a regular laptop and you're using a 4K monitor, well, your screen sizing is going to be much different. So it's nice that they included that feature so that we can try to optimize the view for all our different users. Yes, I can export the dashboard to Excel. Let's jump into the next exercise. So I was going to do that on the gross margin, but we can take a look and see how it comes across in Excel. Within Workspace, you're only able to do the Excel export one widget at a time. We can call these boxes widgets. So if I highlight the visualization down here, and I'm going to click on the, I'm sorry, misspoke there. We can't export the visualization. So we can export the data grid only, which is what the last exercise is all about. We do have the ability to export this whole thing out to a PDF, and that's the share in the upper right. And there's a question yesterday on Rob's presentation as to export capabilities. We used to be able to build a PowerPoint slide out of this as well. That is missing for now. Might be coming back, but in 57, they don't have it yet. So not sure the technical challenge as to why that is so, but we just have the PDF export. Going off script, hopefully it doesn't bite us. All right, looks like we have the top pane, and maybe if we do this as, yeah, I don't think we can do this as layout. So if this is just an, oh yeah, I missed it. The previous step here, want to do this as layout or landscape. That'll be a little bit more legible here. There we go. So the first page being the data grid, which did not all fit on one page. Oh, it's the entire workbook, I'm sorry. The gross margins, the hierarchies, forecast seed, and the dashboard. So that is one method to get it out of PAW into a PDF. Maybe we have users that aren't PAW users that we can email these to. Of course, they're totally static, so they wouldn't be able to interact with them. But if you had executives that want to view the entire workbook in just a flat file, we could ship that off to them. And then getting back onto the script here, extract to Excel is our final exercise. And so we're going to go back to the gross margins tab. And in this one, what we could do is extract to Excel. Rob highlighted this in his demo yesterday. And we are able to build a workbook with tabs for every single member in each dimension. So if we had 27 regions, I could easily, at the click of a button, create a 27 tabbed Excel workbook, one workbook tab per region. Very handy tool there. If you're used to working with those large Excel workbooks with tons of different tabs, PAW can create those very easily. So for this one, I'm going to click the export icon. So I need to highlight the grid, click anywhere. Our icons appear across the top ribbon. The very first one is our export. We're going to click on the versions. It's the first check just to show the different tabs. And when we press export, we instantly get a quick Excel file. Hopefully I'll have Excel installed so you can follow along, but that should download through your browser. You can go ahead and open that up. And we see our 3-tabbed workbook. That took quite some time. But yeah, actual tab, forecast tab, and budget tab. And we can do that by any dimensions. So usually departments is pretty popular. I see customers build out, 40 tabbed Excel workbook with all their different departments on it. Of course, we encourage them to use the Excel add-in called Planning Analytics for Excel. And when you're using that tool, you don't need tons of tabs because everything's at your fingertips. You just use one of these what we call subnum functions within Excel, and we could have a drop down of all of our different regions or customers. So there'd be no use for 40 tabs. We just have one tab and the ability to filter onto any particular region or customer we want. So that wraps it up. Thanks for staying, everybody. All 14 of us here. I think that went really well time-wise. I'm glad all the content fit neatly into the 2-hour allotment. We did take you through the whole experience. from building dimensions and building out your own cube, loading that with data, building business rules, and then performing reporting, forecasting, analysis, and dashboarding. So that is largely highlights all the capabilities. As you can see, very comprehensive tool. It's been around for years and just continues to get better. IBM's investing a lot in this planning analytics workspace that we looked at. Obviously, we're on version 57 already, so new releases come out each month, and it continues to get better and compete with the other big vendors in this space.